Well, this week, the topic of the week has been tools in Acadicus. Every week we've got a different focus that we're working on sort of promoting and social media and our newsletter and everything is kind of focused around a different topic. And this week it's all about tools. So I thought maybe today we could talk about the tools, but we can do whatever we want. We can range out into whatever topic. If anybody has any questions, Neil, I don't know if you have any questions or any specific area you want to go into, we can do whatever we want. No rules. And kind of open up a catechus. We can look at some tools. We can look at some content. We can do whatever we want. So
John, I saw on LinkedIn, and for anybody that follows me, I reposted it. I saw on LinkedIn that you were showing off the medication creator.
yes, the medication creator.
And and I kind of went crazy over that. I'll be completely honest with you. Because just recently, one of our nursing faculty said, "Hey, we need a vial of morphine in here." And I was like, "Okay, hold on. I'll oh wait, we have the medication creator coming in, and I'm not gonna have to go, all right, John, this is what I need now. So I mean that's a tool I'd love to see. I don't know if anybody else is in that same boat as me, but I just thought that was really cool. I saw that you had posted that on LinkedIn. And I think that's a really cool tool. So I,
Yeah,
I even
it's a
said this
fun
is
one.
going to make my job a lot easier. So
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah, for sure.
I know
I
I'd
think that's
personally
going to
be
make,
really interested in that too. That'd be really interesting to see.
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Let me just pull it up. I just refreshed my installation of a catechus, so I should be able to pull it up pretty soon here. Bear with me. So just in terms of other tools too, while I pull that up, the main categories that we look at are obviously scene editing is a big one. You know, we've got scene editing tools that allow you to really kind of completely build scenarios from scratch. You can delete and move things around and pretty powerful tool set that was really kind of central to Acadicus from the beginning, and something that I think sets us apart a little bit is that it's really nothing cookie cutter about it. Like you can completely create your own scenario. It's not, people say, well, you can customize scenarios, and usually they mean you can like change drop down menus or presets, but you're still kind of keeping it on the rails. But this is really a full wide open sandbox where you can create anything you want. So our focus has been on building tools and content that are flexible to be able to be edited. And then the 3D recording tool, it's another one. So
Mm,
one that Bill's been using quite a bit, been able to create a bunch of 3D recordings of
yeah.
anatomy. And that tool, it's like you put on the headset, you hit record, and you do a 3D presentation or demonstration or lecture or whatever you want to do. And it captures everything you're saying, everything you're doing. It captures your whole demonstration, things you're picking up. You can be, multiple people can be in a 3D recording, passing things back and forth. Um,
It's one of the things I've used as a demo quite a bit for, when I have people from other colleges who come in and say, we heard you're using a catechus, and we're sort of still trying to wrap our heads around it. We're trying to figure out exactly how we're going to implement this. And I just had a meeting this week where same thing, a faculty from another college said, "Well, we have a catechus." And Rick has been great, by the way. Rick, oh, he's not in yet, but Rick has been great. We loved him, and he's worked so much with us, and he's helped us out so much. But I'm still having a little trouble sort of wrapping my head around like how does this work? And so we talked a little bit about think of it as a sim lab, but I think that it was and my train has gone off the tracks. So this is what happens when you're in your late 40s, I guess. Um, but but instructors that were they were still having a little bit of trouble. Like how exactly am I gonna like wrap my head around this? And then when I meet with them, I say, think of it as just a regular sim lab. And so then what I do when they come in to take a look at this, I put them in the sim lab, I stick them in the same scenario that we use with our students, and then I just hit the 3D recording and I let it go. And they stand there and they go, oh, because there's the students, they're all talking to each other, they're all working on this mannequin together, and he goes into cardiac arrest, and then they're doing all that, and they're like, so they're just doing this like a regular sim lab. It's like, exactly. And I think because so much has been done on in the VR world, that's like go in and do a solo experience kind of stuff. That's the difference here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be right
Absolutely.
back. I gotta check on something here. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Take your time. It just Rick's having a hard time getting in. Did you guys have a hard time logging in at all? Sean or Neil? They're saying they're
No,
getting an
no.
error.
Oh,
I
it's
had no
fine for me.
problems.
I just posted an update to him. Hopefully nobody else is having any issues. All right, I should be able to share my screen, pull up the medication maker.
All right. Sorry, I heard a weird sound and I was like, what is that? It was my dog. She couldn't get past the gate. She wanted to come in. So,
Mine is
the joys
chilling
of
here.
working at home.
I
So
guess,
yeah. So I
yep.
use the 3D recordings a lot as a way of demoing what we're doing, Like you want to see what we're doing? Here we go.
We have some really cool recordings that are being created by Frank Emanuel from Cochise College
Nice.
that here, hide the floating meeting controls. There we go. Focused on immunology. So Cochise sponsored development of the uh a bunch of like the blood vessel and the surface of the skin, sort of magic school bus type stuff
Yeah.
where you can like
Yeah.
get into the like microscopic level of things. So we've got bacteria and viruses and different things. And so he created a series of 3D recordings. I think he's going to be creating like 7 or 8 in total. He's got like the first 3 of them are done now, and they're great. They kind of go through like this is what happens when there's an infection in the blood, and
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool, to actually see that from within the actual blood vessel, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that. I used the blood vessel for one of my students had asked like what happens when someone has a heart attack. And I thought, okay, well, I got a great way to show this. So I took the blood vessel and then I was like, well, what am I going to use for like the plaque and stuff like that? Garbage bags. I just grabbed garbage bags and started stacking them up and going, yeah, like, look, see, this is how this could happen. Here's that McDonald's fry that I ate, yesterday and all that stuff. And that was a great explanation. And the student actually was like, oh, that's cool. I like it. Hey, what's your problem? She really wanted to be in here, I guess.
What's that?
My dog, she was like going crazy.
She really wanted
be in
to,
here.
yeah. Did Rick get in yet?
I didn't see him.
He
It says,
in the Slack channel he posted the issue that he's having. It's asking him for his
yeah,
to
it
register
says it's
for it.
taking him back to the generic Zoom screen again.
Huh, that's weird. I don't know why
Yeah.
it's doing that for him. I spent over an hour the Wednesday morning, hour and a half, trying to
Mhm.
figure out how to remove that virtual background on the webinar because you can see the forebay
Oh yeah.
in the background, which I thought was cool when I first set up the webinar. But now, like Rick pointed out, it looks like, it's like a Acadicus within a Acadicus when I share my screen. It's a little
Oh yeah.
confusing. And I
Yeah.
was editing the video from the last Simulation Pulse Live, and it does look a little weird. It like you're in a catechus, but you're like in a cat. Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't. It looks a little weird. So I can't
Yeah.
get rid of it though. And there's no option. I looked every single thing, every single
Hmm.
menu item. I called. I tried to work with their chat support. So now I sent a support ticket. I haven't heard back from
Mm.
them yet. I think it's a bug. I really do.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
I,
not
you're probably
exactly, I'm
right.
sure it could be something I'm missing, but to me, it just seems something's broken.
Yeah.
So medication maker is going to be under, let's see. Sean, do you happen to know what pack the medication maker is in? I think it was in
Yeah, I can find out real quick.
the pharmacology, wasn't it?
I would think of pharmacology. That'd be my thought.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's from, yeah, actually it makes sense. That's probably it. Medication
Yeah,
Oh, there it
creator.
is. I'm sorry, I'm missing it. Here we
pharmacology.
go.
Yep, that's it.
Boop, boop. Sean is our lead platform developer, and he recently added this ability to search for assets, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, it's not maker, it's creator. There we go. Yeah, you can search for assets, which has been amazing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna create a an Acadicam so that I don't make everybody dizzy watching my
Display utilities. Yep.
oh yeah, display utilities, sort by name.
Yep, that's one thing we're working on is to avoid, well, to basically eliminate this pack
No, yeah,
system so that everything in the library will be available just from the menu itself. I mean, things will take longer to load in the preview, but that
sure.
way you don't have to download packs.
Acadicam is another one of the tools. So it enables you to
Yeah,
create a camera like this and be able to position it somewhere, turn it on, and then it provides. So, like right now, like you're looking at it through my field of view, that personally makes me motion sick watching
yeah.
someone else. So, this camera, now I'll go into my simulation manager and I'll turn that on, and now you can see a static
I
position.
use the Acadicam a ton. I love it. I remember when I first started, is 2019, when I first started teaching um, in VR, we were basically trying to figure out a way to make it so that everybody wouldn't feel that motion sickness. John, I don't know if you remember, but we talked about like, let's hook up a second computer. Let's have two, this is like 5 years ago. Hook up a different computer. Let's have it logged in twice. Let's do, and then the Acadicam came and it was just like, oh, this has made things so much easier. Um, because now I just put the Acadicam in there, I hit it, and now my students can see it, and they don't get that that dizzy spell feeling. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot. And that Acadicam version 2 that allows you to have it smooth motion is going to be amazing for
yeah.
creating videos. Here's the medication creator. So we can create a medication. And the idea here is that this is not something that like a student would necessarily be doing. This is something that, a sim tech or an instructor or a simulation manager, they're setting this up ahead of time. So you've got a scenario you want to run and you need to have certain types of medication to support the scenario. And instead of, having like a whole library full of all these different medications, we just created this medication creator. So you can see it's a little hard to see here. Maybe I'll move this up a little closer so you can see,
Gotcha.
but you can choose tab, syringe, vial, or IV bag. And so we'll say we want a tab of acetaminophen and we'll say 500. This is where my lack of medical knowledge becomes obvious is 500
No, that's good. Yeah,
milligrams, right?
it'd be milligrams. Yeah,
Yeah, 500 milligrams. And then we say, all right, so that's what we want. Confirm. Oops, I'm sorry. We need to confirm the setting. So we're setting it up here, and then we press the plus button here to create it. Oh,
pull that creator up just a little bit there, John.
oh yeah,
The creator itself, just a tiny bit. There you go. And so
yeah,
you just hit that plus button.
yeah, right there. Boom. Now we
Nice.
got two.
Oh man, look at that.
And we can create as many of these as we want. Acetaminophen, 500 milligrams.
Oh man, that's great.
So then we could go back in here and say we want a syringe of atropine. What's an appropriate dose of atropine?
1 milligram.
we'll do 1 milligram. Confirm, hit plus, and now we have a syringe.
Wow.
Syringe of atropine, 1 milligram. So we're getting started. There's a bunch more we're going to be doing. They're not all the medications are in here, obviously, and not every type of medication is, or every form is available. I don't think we have any vials yet. Yeah, to be determined, or IV bags to be determined. So these
Okay,
are
still working on those.
still in the works, but we'll be creating those over time. So yeah,
So,
that is the medication creator. And I guess while I'm in here, let me just move these out of the way. We were talking about the scene editing tools. Pull my menu up here, scene edit. So I'm logged in to Acadicus as an administrator. And when you do, you come in, you get to this menu that you can move around and put it wherever you want in your scene, and it kind of follows you around. But I'm going to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to go into assets. And this is where I can create whatever I want. So I can, like we talked about before, you can download content packs depending on what you want to do. And we have a wiki that we're adding more of this content to, so you can find what you're looking for pretty easily that way. Download whatever scenario you want to run. I'm going to go ahead and download the Gen 2 patients because those are pretty cool. I'm going to create the Gen 2 patient, download that pack, and then it shows up in my inventory. But you can see here, I can just like point my controller at the thing, and I can just grab onto it. And then once I've got
there
it
it
grabbed
is.
onto, I can use my joystick to push it away or pull it closer. And I can use my joystick to turn it left or rotate left or right. And then I've got it right now so it's surface aligned, so it snaps. It's kind of like stopping at the surface of the floor, which is what I want. I've got options for, like, I can turn that off, surface align. Now it just goes through the floor, but I want it to surface align because I want it to be lined up with the floor, obviously. So I can do that. And then this colorful thing, we talked about this last week, but this is called the gizmo. And it looks complicated, but it's not really that bad once you get used to it.
Yep.
There's basically these arrows and these circles, and there's little cubes, and each one of them represents either an axis that you're moving along, either moving or rotating. So we can just grab the circle here and rotate around that position. Or we can grab, like, the green arrow will move it only up and down. So I can't move it left or right, but I can only move it up or down. So it moves in that orientation. Now, if I grab onto the object without, like, somewhere not the gizmo, then it's free form. And now I'm back to, like, I can use my joystick, I can rotate, I can click it. Now, if you really want to get fancy, for whatever reason, you can press down on the joystick to change the scale, and then the joystick actually changes the scale of it. So that can be kind of fun. There's not too many use cases anymore for scaling assets because everything in healthcare is kind of like real life scale. Like, unless you want to create, like, I know Bill and I, we created that, or you created that miniature city model for the multiple casualty training, which was kind of fun.
Yep. Yeah, I actually did use this. So we had a bandage that when the nursing faculty looked at it, they were like, okay, so the bandage is square. The bandage that we're talking about wouldn't be square, it'd be rectangular. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just grabbed it and pulled it so that it was rectangular. And then they said, well, that's a little too big. It would be a little smaller than that. Oh, okay. So I just scaled it down a little bit and it was perfect. I also use it for, like, orders. So for nursing orders, because what I'll do is when the nursing faculty give me orders that they want to be in there, I'll put the orders in as an image, and then I'll just take it and you can make it huge so that it's on the wall, but I don't do that. I shrink it down a little bit so that it's more like paper size, maybe just a little bit above paper size. And then I make it hand grabbable so they can actually pick it up and look at the orders and go, oh, okay, here's the orders, just like they would, like, with a piece of paper. And I know most of them are now on a screen. So then what I did was I grabbed the orders, put it right where the screen would be, and then just locked it there so that there you go. The orders are right on top of the screen. So I could scale it and everything the way that I wanted. It was pretty neat.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of like playing with stuff and going, does this work? Okay, whoa, oh, I see. Yeah, if I pull it this way, yeah, that makes it longer. If I do this, it scrunch it down, it just seems to work well.
And you can also use any prop kind of creatively or abstractly. So you can, instead of shrinking something so it's still the same thing but smaller, you could make something into something else.
Yeah,
Like like something that's cylindrical, you can make it really large to make like a pillar.
yeah,
If you, or a wall, if you want to edit or create some kind of section in the room that doesn't exist. So you can create your own walls or ceilings or
yep.
decorations or pieces of the room.
I made an art gallery with pictures that were sent to me by the architecture instructor. He sent me the pictures of what the architecture students had designed, what their designs were. And I just took those and I placed them in the scene in the amphitheater out in back of the Madison College headquarters. And the students, as they were kind of touring through, they were checking out the headquarters and stuff. They're like, "Oh, this is neat. Yeah, this is really cool." And then they get to the back, and I've got even some of their pictures up on the walls in the hallway of the Madison College headquarters. They're like, "Wait a minute, that that's my picture. That's my design," and they just thought that was the coolest thing. So just
Yeah, that's
neat
awesome.
ways that you can do those things.
Put lights in your scene. You can kind of change up the lighting if you want. And I should mention too, like when you're moving an asset around like that, once you've got, like, if I bring her into the scene and she was like kind of like sideways when I first brought her in, I can just hit the let me pull this into view here. The reset button just resets the position so you can like move and get it ready there. And again, this menu you can put wherever you want. You can even tear this panel off if you wanted to be able to, put it somewhere else, or this has got like all the little details in terms of visibility. You can turn physics onto objects. You can have them be teleportable or grabbable. Certain things you want to be grabbable and certain things you don't. So for example, earlier I was showing the nasal cannula. You would want that to be grabbable so that the student can like grab onto it.
Yeah.
Let's see if I grab my Gen 2 patient.
Yeah,
Any
and then
of
if you
these.
have a countertop that you're putting it on, you want that to be non-hand grabbable.
Right, yeah, and the patient
Um,
themselves, you wouldn't want to be able to like pick the patient up and move
right.
them around necessarily under every use case. So,
Right.
you know,
I've made that mistake before when I was putting scenes together where I'd put something in there, patient or a uh the vitals monitor on the wall, right? I accidentally made that laser grabbable. And so the students were like grabbing it accidentally. They're pointing at the lid and all of a sudden it's right in front of their faces. And I'm like, oops.
eh,
You know,
eh.
so but what's great is I can just go back in there and go, okay, well, that non-grabbable. All right, now I'm going to put it back where it was and then make it non-grabbable and, it's fixed.
So like nasal cannula, two N's, John, when I'm searching for it. But
Mm,
like I can just go over here and turn it on to grabbable. I usually do both laser and hand grabbable.
yeah,
Lasers, you can grab it from a distance. So if I want to like, if I'm pointing at it from a distance like this and I want to be able to have it snap to my hand, that's laser grabbable. But hand grabbable is you have to have your hand in it like that to pick it up. There's a use case for both. Sometimes you want it to just be, but then I can basically put it on the patient. So this is a grabbable, asset, but something, like I can't grab onto like the patient or the posters on the wall. Like I wouldn't want to be able to grab onto those.
yeah.
So that's kind of the grabbable system. And the medication, of course, like we want to be able to grab the individual medications and things like that. So that's kind of scene editing. That's the editing tool there. While we have this patient up, we can look at simulation manager. So simulation manager is really the tools that allow you to control everything in the scene. So you can, we have all different kinds of things like the multiple casualty scene. There's explosions and there's sirens and there's distant and all different things. Or for the neonatal patient, there's a whole set of vitals and things for animations and everything for the premature neonatal patient that we have. And in this case, we have one of our Gen 2 patients. So the simulation manager has a lot of different controls here. Let me pull this up so you can see it. But we can go into animation, so we can have the patient look like they're talking. We can have them have different facial expressions, sad. I guess you can see her there, but
Nauseous is pretty good.
nauseous, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Ugh.
one of my favorites.
Pained, angry.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. And we can have her like shaking her head if we want.
Mhm.
We can have head pose, so we can have her turning her head and looking around. And he kind of just controls. It's like you're puppeteering, the patient. So if you have a bed active right now, we don't have a bed set up, but we can have her in Fowler's 45.
Yeah, I do.
You
So I have usually have one patient that a CHF patient that I start off in Fowler's 30, and then they're like, "Oh, we need to sit you up," and so I put her in Fowler's 90, and then they want to listen to lung sounds on the back, so I put her in Fowler's leaning forward, and listen to lung sounds, and I'll even like, "Can I lean back now? Can I sit back now? Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry," and then sit back to Fowler's 90. It's really awesome to be able to do that on the fly.
That's awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Then we've got general apparel, so we can change her clothing. For the multiple casualty, we might have her in like dirty street clothes, or for the social determinants of health, we have a downtown sort of encampment environment. So you could have, or we could have her in a patient gown. Um, we can have if there's a bed present. So we could set up a bed. Now, this is going to be weird. She's going to be standing on the bed for a second, but keep in mind, this is like a technician that's setting up the scene. You're not going to be doing this in real time while a student is in here, but we're setting this patient up. Let's pretend like we want to have her, in a bed in the hospital room here. So I'll put her on the bed, and then I can go back to the animation and have her go to Fowler's 45, and then we can have her all set and ready to go. So now this, well, we would essentially move. Let me just move the patient into position here, like we would be
Yeah, and this is
having.
what I do like a week before the simulation. Or if it's a simulation where we haven't played with or we haven't tried yet, then I'll usually do it a little bit before, and I'll have the faculty come and check it out before we run it with the students, just to make sure that they're good with what's going on. And then from there, uh, I just run the simulation. And once I've set it up, it's there. The scene is just there. So I can just run it every single time. Or if I want to build off of that scene. So maybe, today we're doing something with nursing, but maybe tomorrow we're doing something with respiratory therapy. And so maybe I just want to bring some different, adjuncts in there. So, I want to bring a nebulizer, those kind of things. I can just get all that stuff, put it in, have it ready to go for the next one, save that scene, and then I can have multiple scenes. I have, one that's CHF, one that's asthma, one that's emphysema, so that I don't have to keep like changing all the parameters. It's already saved for me.
That's awesome. Yep, we've got options for circulatory, so you can have heart sounds. We've got atrial fibrillation, murmur, and then we've got options to expand. Next week, our focus is on our Acadicus assist services, where, there's like you'll notice there's an S3 and S4. Those are placeholders for custom sound. So Acadicus assist is really our services division that can provide custom development, and we can add custom sounds, and we can do, create a custom patient and environment. We can help run simulations. We'll be getting into more of that next week, but that's what the S3 and S4, those are basically placeholders for custom content. We can turn those off too. Like when you turn them off, then if a student grabs a stethoscope, they wouldn't see those options. But we can change pulse strength. We can change capillary refill, respiratory. We can have her coughing. We can have bloody discharge or drainage in the nose, anterior lung sounds, posterior lung sounds. We got digestion. We can have her sticking out her tongue, left or right or center. We can have her vomiting. That's always a fun one. We can have
Yeah, the
patches and
architecture
ulcers.
students wanted to see that. They
I
were like,
bet they did.
I said, you know what? Here are all the things we can make this patient do. I'm not going to show you the vomiting. You know, they're like, no, show it. I'm like, okay, which one do you want? We want bloody. Okay, bloody it is. You know.
Yeah, these are great patients for total body head to toe assessments.
Yeah.
Rick is here.
Yeah,
What's
they
up,
really are.
Rick? I'm glad you made it in. I was
We
just thinking
made
about.
it.
Hey, Rick.
Hey,
Sorry,
Bill.
Hey,
issues. Still kind of on a learning curve with the webinar stuff I am, so it's probably something I set up. I don't know.
No, I had to reboot my system on my end and re-sign back into Zoom, and then I finally was able to get in.
Good. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, sorry about that.
Hey, John, just to let you know, the chat is disabled. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not.
Oh no, I want to get that. Rick, is that something you could do as a host on your end? I think you might have controls to turn the chat on.
Really? Okay, I'll check into that.
See if you can. Otherwise I'll drop out of the headset and set that up. Pupils, cognition. So I guess the point is here you can really set up whatever you want, in terms of your patient. And again, that's kind of back to the point of this being a true sandbox where, you're not stuck with the way the scenario comes prepackaged. You've got the flexibility to come in here and change it to run whatever scenario you want. And one of the things that, we were talking about with the OpenRN project is, it's a really exciting project to develop open source textbooks, which they've done now. And we've built virtual reality. They wanted us to build 25 virtual reality scenarios that complement various parts of those textbooks. And, the cool thing about it is we built 25 scenarios, but we didn't really just build scenarios. We built the content to support the creation of 25 scenarios. So now that we have that content built, you could use that content in these Gen 2 patients and the environments that we created to support those 25 scenarios to build 25,000 scenarios, right? You just change it up. You want it to be an asthma patient. You want it to be CHF. You want to be, in a different environment, in an ICU, in an exam room. You can take these patients and you can do whatever you want. So it's really, we can run those 25 scenarios, but it's like we kind of set the stage with a foundation that you can use to really scale and create all kinds of different things.
yeah, and for me, what's important is that I can change it on the fly. So when I'm doing a scenario and a student, makes a decision that either is beneficial to the patient or is not beneficial to the patient, I can make the patient reflect that, just like I do in the simulation lab, and I don't have to stick to a script. Because the students go off script. It happens. They go off script. I think I mentioned it last week where I had a student that meant to say adenosine and instead said atropine. And that's a big difference. Adenosine slows your heart rate down, atropine speeds it up. And the patient had an already fast heart rate. They were in SVT. And so, I that was not in the script. That was not in the script. The script would have been give adenosine and now I can lower the heart rate, or give adenosine and the heart rate lowers. And it wouldn't have, because the students at atropine, I even checked a couple times. Did you say atropine? I didn't say, did you say atropine? I just said 6 milligrams of atropine. And I knew what the student meant, but it was a great learning experience because I could then say, okay, what happened there? Why did the patient's heart rate go up? Oh, because I said atropine and not adenosine. And the student even said, but you knew what I meant. I'm like, of course I knew what you meant. But keep in mind, we're working together as partners and we have to talk about closed loop communication. And I closed that loop and came back and said, copy 6 milligrams of atropine and you said, of atropine, and you said, yes, 6 milligrams of atropine. So the closed loop communication didn't work, and it's a good example of how it didn't work.
Ah, yep. That makes sense. So we've got,
And a
we
student will
covered,
never mistake those two drugs again.
yeah, that's a big time learning experience for sure. So we went over the assets or the scene editing, and we talked about the simulation manager. We haven't talked about the 3D recording tool, which is one of my favorites. I think this is one of my favorites. I'm going to tear off the recording menu so that you can see what this looks like as I'm doing it here. Hopefully this works. Be a little tricky, but I want to be in a position where I can interact with the patient. But this is the scene recording menu, and I tore it off of my main menu so that you can see what I'm doing. But basically, I created the nasal cannula and I made it learner grabbable so that I can like pick it up and interact with it. I'm going to go into learner mode. So I can pick, and this obviously is not a meaningful setup for a simulation. This is purely just for the purpose of demonstrating how a 3D recording works. But let's just say I've got, a tray of equipment here, nasal cannula is one of them, and I want to do a basic demonstration of placing a nasal cannula on a patient. Obviously, this could be anything you can imagine. This could be a whole scenario. We have 3D recordings of, Foley catheter insertion and EKG lead setup. These are created by experts. I'm not an expert. This is just a demonstration of the software. But if you want to check it out, like there's, if you reach out to us, we can set you up with a demo of some of the really cool 3D recordings. And Bill has created a bunch of 3D recordings of anatomy and a bunch of other stuff. And so check those out for sure. But just as a tool, this is how it works. You basically are just in VR, you're logged in as administrator. All you do is hit record. I've got my microphone set up to be going through the Zoom webinar, so it's not going to be capturing my voice in this case, but it's recording everything I'm saying and everything I'm doing right now. Well, not everything I'm saying because my mic isn't set up here, but it would be otherwise. So if I place this on the patient and take it off the patient and put it back over here, so that's been recorded. I can hit stop. And now that recording is in my library here. Now, what I can do is I can create what we call a holocron of that. So this is basically a holocron. Let me go back into edit mode here. Grab my recording. Holocrons are basically, I guess the analogy I sometimes use is like if assets are the nouns of Acadicus, the holocrons are the verbs. Like they're the things that do stuff in terms of like the interaction. Like you can have a holocron that loads a scene, or a holocron that changes the lab that you're in, or a holocron that plays a 3D recording. So this is what we call a holocron, and we can place this wherever we want. Like if we wanted to place it above the patient, so let's just say that was a 3D recording. I want my students to come in here and check this out. I want to make it nice and big. Let me like reset the position of it and have it sitting there. And then I would save my scene like this. And now a learner would come in and they would be able to like press play on that recording. I'm going to get out of the way here. I'll go over here and press play. And then we'll see that 3D recording play back. Now, again, normally you would hear my voice if I had my mic set up in Acadicus, but that's
A couple of use cases that I had with nursing. So when we did the cardiac arrest scenario, nursing said, there's no code button. Can we put a code button? And the code button, when they hit it, the normal sound would come over top, code blue, ICU, those kind of things. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I did. I created a 3D recording of myself saying, code blue, room 591, code blue, room 591. And now that becomes the code blue. And I just put it there, and I labeled it code blue, and they hit that button when the patient goes into cardiac arrest, and then they hear that normal code blue over top. I also did it because we realized, having 3 students in there, we don't necessarily have enough people because, normally in the hospital, everybody's going to come running to a code blue. And so we didn't have enough people to like do CPR and to bag and all of that. So I just made recordings of myself doing CPR and doing BVM And then the student, I go over and they say, we need somebody to do compressions. We need somebody to do ventilations. And so I just hit, I have those holocrons hidden. I just hit those hidden holocrons, and on goes the recording of me doing CPR and me doing BVM. It works great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Gives them extra hands.
And one of the things I mention occasionally during demos is the possibility of doing immersive debriefing with the 3D recording. And I don't know if I've gotten anybody to take me up on it, but I think it's pretty cool in terms of you've got students that are in the scenario going through, interactions with a patient, and they do the whole thing. You can record that all in 3D. And then when you do your debriefing, you can press play and watch the entire scenario play back in 3D. And you can pause it at any given point. If somebody didn't notice the vital signs changed, or somebody didn't notice something, you can debrief like by watching yourself in 3D, which is pretty incredible.
Can be a real powerful tool too for interpersonal communication. Listening to how I talked to someone, did it come off well? Did it sound right? Was I saying what I meant to say? Was the message being received by the other person who was listening? It's a pretty good interpersonal communication tool as well, because then you can play that recording and put yourself in the spot of the patient and listen to the way that you spoke to the patient. And I think of that in like end of life stuff, right? So if we're going to be telling someone, hey, this is what's going on, and unfortunately this is terminal, something like that, you can then do that, talk to that person, and then put yourself in that person's shoes and listen to how you spoke, and using that improve what you might say, when you're standing in front of an actual patient.
Yeah, absolutely. So one other feature here that I wanted to cover was the tool being multiplayer. So obviously you can have multiple people in the scene at the same time, but you can also change your lab into solo mode. And this is a feature that's a little hard to understand at first, but once you wrap your mind around it, it's pretty powerful in terms of what you can do with it. So if I created that 3D recording, let's just say I created a demonstration I wanted the students to come in and watch. If I change my lab to solo mode, every student that comes in is going to be in their own instance of the simulation. So even though, technically a lab supports one simulation concurrently, you can actually have the lab set to solo mode and have, 10 students come in and watch that 3D recording, and they'll all be in their own instance. So they won't be interrupting each other. They won't, see or hear each other. They're in their own world. So if they're doing like a self-guided scenario, like the EKG lead setup, you might set your lab to solo mode and then have everybody come in and do their own version of it. But if you want to do a multiplayer or multi-user simulation, you just switch it back to multi, and now it's back. One note on this, you just want to make sure when you set it, you need to leave the lab and then come back for that setting to take place. So just don't forget, if you change it to solo mode, just quit, leave the lab and then come back and it'll be set to solo. Ghost mode, I guess, is another tool to mention while we're in here. So ghost mode enables you to be invisible to your learners. So if you want to be in the scene, but you don't want them to see you, kind of, typical sim ghost type stuff. If you're puppeteering or playing the role of the patient and you don't want the student to see you, you can go into ghost mode.
Yeah, when I play the role of the patient, I actually bring myself over to where the patient's at, and I basically sit very close to where the patient's at. And it gives me a really interesting perspective on medical care, but it works great to have that. So,
And then finally, the camera. We have a camera that you can use to take pictures with. If you press your B button on the controller, it takes a picture. So if you're creating a scenario, we can also do a 360. So this will create a 360 camera view of your scene, and you press play, and then it captures a 360. And you can actually detach that. So if you want to actually kind of leave it there and move somewhere else, you can just leave the 360 camera there, and that's under your utilities.
And John, it's probably worth mentioning that the path for where those images get stored is right there on that screen you had up.
Oh
So if
yeah,
you're
good call.
wondering where those images go, we
Oops.
create file folders when you install Acadicus where you access these images from. And also it's where you import images into the scene if you have graphics or videos that you want to use to enhance your teaching.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, I was mentioning how I load things in, but didn't say how to do it and where to find it.
Yeah, I try to go over this with all of our new folks who join our community and go through training, because I do think it's one of the most powerful features we have. We have a great library of 3D assets, but when you have content that you've maybe spent time on or use regularly in your lectures, you're able to bring that into these learning environments and use them inside the headset also.
Absolutely.
I don't know of any other tool that does that. I can't. I mean, it's like that. That's that. Like you said, powerful. It's really great. Like I can bring in my own information. I mean, our respiratory therapy instructor came to me and said, "Well, here's the lab values that I would want for the ABGs." So I said, "Okay, great." And I took a screenshot of the lab values for the ABGs. It's an image, loaded it in, put it into Acadicus in, 5-10 minutes. Now I have ABGs sitting there ready for the students when they come in.
Nice.
Yeah, great example of this is I was working with one of our schools and they wanted to do the pediatric pain simulation. And we found this quick little 45-second clip of a time lapse of a tonsillectomy pre and post. And they wanted that out in the hallway during pre-brief before the nursing student went in to take care of the pediatric patient who was post tonsillectomy, right? So we're not able to show kind of, the inside of the throat of the pediatric character, but that video did, a better job than we probably could at kind of showing that whole 30-day healing process so that the students could kind of get a sense of what that was like.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Set this over here. One more thing I wanted to show was all the things that we've done. When we first arrived in this lab, it was obviously the heart flow scenario. We had the heart there, the 3D recording of Dr. Slayman going through heart flow. But now we deleted all that. We brought in a Gen 2 patient. Now I've changed the environment, which by the way, I did. That's one thing you can do under your assets when you download content packs. Some of the content packs come with environment settings, and you can go into your simulations tab and change the environment. So when you download those packs, they come with environments that you can then change here. So I changed it to the simulation center environment here. Now, none of the changes that we made will stay. So if I leave this lab and come back, it'll be back to the heart flow because that's the scene that's set up as the default. Like I loaded that scene last, and that's the lab default for the lab that I'm in. But if I wanted to change those settings, like let's just say I had brought that Gen 2 patient in and I had the nasal cannula all set up and everything was all ready to go with the 3D recording, I would want to make sure I save that into my lab. And the way you do that is you go into your simulations under active and then click that little the save button here and create whatever name you want, type that in. And then this is where you would assign that to be the auto load for your lab. If you want that to always be what shows up when you come into your lab, you would set that there. And then we'll save that. And now in my lab, I've got a lot of scene configurations in here, scene files, but you can see there's my demo. And if I clicked on load, that would just basically reload what I have here. So that's what you want to always make sure you're doing is like, if you go in and you edit and create a scenario, you want to be able to go back into your simulations menu and save that. And while I'm here, I just want to mention that we have the shared library and Sean's been working on adding a bunch of content to this. And Stefan, who leads our content development team, has been working on this too, and making sure that we get all of our shared library. We're adding more content, more scenes to this all the time, but we'll have scene templates and scenarios in here that are self-guided. Obviously, all the OpenRN scenarios, and these are available for anyone that has a lab, can just go in there into that shared library and load these up. And these are kind of the gold standard for each one of these scenarios. And then these are the lab is the lab I'm in, and these are the scenes that I have in my lab. Yeah. And you can change the scene setting starting point. So basically, if I want to set that, I can grab it and it creates this little arrow. And I can place this wherever I want, and that'll be where the person, anybody that comes to that lab, will show up in that location, in that orientation. So if you want them like standing right next to the patient when they arrive, you'd want to set that up so that's right next to the patient, and then make sure you save that scene with the setting, with the starting point in that location. Well, we're approaching the top of the hour. I think I'm just going to take the headset off. Back over to.
Neil, did you have any questions or anything like that?
You know, Bill, I've got a ton. It's admittedly been a while since I jumped into the demo account, and I've been a longtime advocate for the implementation of Acadicus here at the University of Chicago, and finally starting to get some traction with that. I'd really love to explore a demo, or you know, a live demo with some of our faculty. I know our faculty, our executive director, reached out to John regarding like a VR open house we're looking to have in April. But
Awesome.
one thing that I'm looking, an idea that I think or a question I should say we get asked a lot is the development of center specific assets. So for example, you know, it looks like ACLS is a big you know, I'm an ACLS instructor. I manage the ACLS program here, so that would be a big interest of mine. So like specifically our defibrillator, we use this whole R series, you know, and although you know, like arguably there's the algorithmic approach, the building of the clinical confidence and clinical decision making is more important. Is there an ability to incorporate those specific, you know, like our specific devices into these scenes?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see. I would say, you know, Rick might have more to say about this as well, but we can develop custom content around anything. I think that's one of the first things that Bill asked was like, I need what was it? I forget what
Life Pack 15.
Life Pack 15
Yep.
we created, you know, so you know, we were able to build that. And that's our Acadicus Assist is basically our services division that can basically take requests. And the way that we do that is we have a simulation plan template, essentially, where you can just, you know, upload a photograph of what you want it built, and a description of what you want it to do, and any information at all about how you want that asset to function, and we can create that for you. Yeah.
One of the first scenarios, that was one of the first scenarios we did, John.
That was right.
ACLS, dynamic cardiology.
ACLS, yeah.
Because I'm an ACLS instructor as well. And so that was 2020. That was April, May of 2020, I think.
It was a while back.
Yeah, and I started using it with my students in I think it was August of 2020 was when I first started getting students into it. Yeah, we did that. And then we have the sequencer now that has 5 ACLS scenarios straight from American Heart. You know, or I should say based off American Heart, not straight from, based off American Heart. But it was scenarios that I had created based off of those, but based off of the same things that we used for the American Heart Association. And we built those scenarios in there. And we now have a sequencer to where, you know, the patient goes from, let's say it's SVT, and they're going into asystole, or let's say they're going into VFib, right? So
Yeah.
that it's one button push to change all the parameters regarding the patient. So you click one button, it changes all of the changes the waveforms, changes the SpO2, the end tidal CO2, changes all of that on that monitor screen.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think I love the on the fly capabilities. Perfect example of that. I think you speaking to closed loop communication earlier. Often, especially with our new resident onboarding, something as simple as SVT, where you want to reinforce that the synchronization of that, and so it's not an asynchronous delivery that and energy, right? You can throw them into VFib if they didn't synchronize, and
Yep.
again, because like you said earlier, everything goes off script, right?
Exactly.
We do a lot of high fidelity sim with anesthesia, and I mean there's about 1 billion use cases for that, I think, in that scenario. So yeah, I would very much be interested in I don't know if there's again, we have the demo account. We've had that since about 2020-ish, where we've walked through and seen the scenarios. But again, we're finally getting some traction on that. So I would very much be interested to see if there's a demo in terms of the operator side of things.
Well, I'd even offer up, I mean, if you want to meet up, someday in Acadicus, since we're both ACLS instructors, we're speaking the same language. I'd be more than happy to do that, and we can run each other through an ACLS scenario. All right, Bill, here you go. Brush off the dust, my man. So, yeah,
no, that'd be very cool. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Yeah, Bill, are you on LinkedIn? Can I reach out to you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and keep in touch with John and keep in touch with Rick, because obviously they can just bring me in and into it and say, hey, let's do that. But I love that kind of stuff. I love going in and showing people how I've done what I've done, because I'll tell you, and John, you and I were so much just flying the plane for all of this as we were building it, and it was so much fun. I mean, we really had such a good time. And John and I got to be great friends doing it.
That's great.
And that was, I like that experience. I like getting with other people in there and kind of going, oh yeah, we can do that. Here's how we do it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. I actually have to jump off. I have a 1 o'clock.
Me too.
Yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, I don't want to keep anybody, but yeah, if there's anybody that could reach out, Bill, I'll hit you up on LinkedIn for sure. But if there's anybody that reach, John, I don't know if you're the best contact in terms of
if you send me a note and I can copy Rick, and Rick can really help coordinate a demo and get you all into the same.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Place. Appreciate
All right.
joining today, and have a great weekend.
Yeah.